Hello beautiful souls and welcome to my channel, Roseology. I'm sorry, I feel like I just did that to you. I'm so happy and honored to have you guys here with me today. I pray that you all are doing well, staying safe, staying healthy, staying protected, doing as best as you can to really protect yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We're going to be getting into it today because this full moon in Libra, that's what this video is inspired by. This full moon in Libra is happening April 7th to April 8th, depending on what part of the world you live in. So you can just do a quick Google search to see exactly when that full moon will be occurring in your neck of the woods. But basically, that's what this video is about. So I'm going to be flipping some cards. I have not flipped any cards yet, but I'll be flipping them later on camera just to get a nice tarot reading for the energy that we're going to be working with this full moon, as well as, like I said, this video is inspired by the full moon. So that means that you can work with the information in this video all year long, no matter what point in time of the year it is, and no matter what sign you are. The information in this video still applies because it is a general reading. So you do not have to be a Libra anything, sun, moon, or rising in order for this information to apply to you, because it is applying to everyone, okay? And like I said, you can use this information at any point in time throughout the year. Somebody actually asked a very good question, which was, how are we able to use this information throughout the year? Well, basically, the information that I talk about when I'm talking about the planets and the different energies that they carry, or the signs and the houses and the different energies that they carry, those energies, that stays the same. Those descriptions stay the same. Those details stay the same. The only thing that's really going to kind of change up is how these energies are interacting with each other, depending on what their placements are during these new and full moons, okay? So as well as I keep getting asked if I have any social media. You guys that have been subscribed to this channel for a while, you already know that no, I do not have any social media. So if you're new here, no, I do not have any social media. That's probably why you're not able to find me. If you are able to find me on like Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or something like that, it's a fake. It's not me. The only social media that I have is a YouTube channel. If you know exactly why you are here, then you can go on ahead and scroll down to the description and the comment section down below for timestamps to different points and topics discussed in this video. I think I got pretty much everything out of the way that I want to talk about. This video is going to be a little bit behind schedule. I've got a whole bunch of things going on. I'm actually currently in the process of moving, and I'm also at the same time still working on videos, and so it's wild what's going on right now. But yeah, thank you guys for being patient with me. I really do love and appreciate you guys. So yeah, let's just go ahead and jump in. So the very first thing that we're going to be talking about when it comes to this full moon in the sign of Libra is, what is a full moon? For those of you that are new to astrology, the full moon happens when the sun and the moon are in opposition of each other, and this means that the sun and the moon are 180 degrees apart. The moon is the ruler of our emotional self, our instincts, our survival, our needs. This is the innermost part of us, our emotional self, the subconscious self, that is kind of buried under different layers, buried under the layers of our ego and other things that we've sort of molded ourselves into being. So that's what the moon represents. It represents the innermost being of ourself, right? So anytime we have a full moon, it's almost like that innermost being comes out to the surface a bit, and it can be a little bit confrontational depending on, or not confrontational, but a little bit temperamental depending on exactly what is coming to the surface, okay? And this is why it's really important for us to take a look at what is buried beneath all of those layers, because when we have things like the full moon, or when we have things that sort of trigger that innermost part of ourselves, our inner child, our emotional self, our instincts, when we have something that triggers that, whatever is going on in that innermost layer is going to come out to the surface, all right? Let's go ahead and talk about the energy of Libra. So who is Libra? So Libra is the ruler of the 7th house. Libra is the sign that is ruled by the planet Venus, and Libra is the ruler of the 7th house. And when we're dealing with the 7th house, we are dealing with the other, okay? So not just necessarily relationships, we're dealing with the other, whether this means other human beings, whether this means other versions of ourselves. So Libra energy can be, in a sense, a little bit confronting because we're dealing with our mirror. And that is why Libra is sort of represented as a scales, right? Because this is all about, like, if you know about the Neteru Ma'at and ancient Egyptian mythology or tradition, ancient Cometian mythology, Ma'at, she is represented by the scales. It's all about weighing your heart on a scale to see if you are balanced, to see if you have made balanced choices in your life. And so that's what Libra does. It balances us not just in certain areas and things in our life, but it balances us overall. So it balances us in our relationships, in our dynamics, and the relationships that we have. And we have a relationship with everything because we have energetic attachments. We have cords that are connected to a lot of different things. We have a relationship with money. We have a relationship with our bodies. We have a relationship with sex. We have a relationship with food. We have a relationship with a lot of different things that we are exchanging with, right? So it's all about this exchange. What are we exchanging with? And so when we're dealing with Libra, we can be dealing with a mirror that reflects exactly who we are. So this can be a bit confronting. And in my opinion, Libra, that's what makes Libra a bit empathic, is because it's always reflecting back to you who and what you are. This is why the judicial system is represented by the scales. So Libra being about balance, this means that it's all about symmetry, right? I need to match you. So this is why we are dealing with reflections. This is why I'm referring to Libra as a mirror to us, basically, because it's all about symmetry. So this can also have a lot to do with our shadow. This can have a lot to do with the subconscious and unconscious psyche. So if Libra worships equilibrium and symmetry and balance, then this means that Libra has to be very well versed in terms of perspective and objectivity. This means that Libra has to be able to see both sides or all sides to a situation or a person or an energy or themselves or whatever the case. So this is also what kind of makes Libra a bit, people will call Libra sort of indecisive. In my opinion, Libra is not indecisive. Libra just has a lot of perspective, but that's what we deal with when we deal with air signs. They see things differently. But because of this, we're dealing with very diplomatic sort of energy when we deal with Libra. Okay, so now that we kind of understand the energy of Libra in a full moon, let's go ahead and talk about, and I'm just looking at my notes over here, but let's go ahead and talk about the astrological chart of this full moon. Now we have the moon square Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, as well as the moon will be opposing Uranus. When I saw the chart for this full moon, the second I saw it, it felt so confronting. It was just kind of like, okay. And it was just like this instant reaction. And the one thing that I noticed about this confrontational feeling was that it felt a little bit misdirected, misguided, and maybe even misconstrued. Then I remembered the words that I heard a couple of weeks ago when I was driving, and it was the words lost in translation. And that is exactly what this full moon is. Not just this full moon. I feel like this full moon energy I've been feeling this full moon energy for the last week and a half before this full moon, and I just have this intuitive feeling that we're going to be feeling it for the next maybe week or two as well. So lost in translation, that is exactly what this full moon is. This is us facing our truth versus the world's truth. This is us facing our truth versus other people's truth, seeing our perspective versus someone else's perspective. And when we have these different sides like that, it can be a little bit difficult for us to figure out, well, which voice do I listen to? Which side do I listen to? And this can create some identity crisis or a little bit of cognitive dissonance, because as humans, we're sort of hardwired to see life in as one direction. It's either or, light or dark, black or white, left or right. It's very sort of we don't really like the gray area, even though it definitely exists. We try to sort of make distinctions. We're very much so like that. We also do this so that the way we have an antidote for confusion. And for the moon to be situated by itself in the sign of Libra, a sign that is predominantly collaborative, social, extroverted, because it's a positive sign. And when we're dealing with positive signs in the zodiac wheel, there's 6 positive signs, 6 negative signs. The negative signs are more introverted, the positive signs are more extroverted. So Libra is a positive cardinal sign. And for the moon to be sitting alone in Libra, this can feel very uneasy, very unnatural, very unusual. And so this can cause a bit of a disconnect between who we think we are versus who others think us to be, how the world thinks us to be. Moving on to Mars conjunct Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. Now, Saturn just moved into the sign of Aquarius. Saturn will be in the sign of Aquarius for the next couple of years. So this is completely new, different energy. You may have definitely just felt a huge shift in energy. More than likely, this is because Saturn, which is a pretty major planet, just moved out of the sign of Capricorn and now into the sign of Aquarius. And it's been in Capricorn for the last couple of years, right? So, and I have a Saturn survival guide coming out for you guys pretty soon. And so with Mars conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, this can feel a bit painful, uncomfortable, a little bit heavy, but there's no need to stress about this because this is completely natural. If you are feeling alone, isolated, triggered, defensive, exposed, vulnerable, naked, this is all good, okay? This means that you have arrived on time and at the right place. Discomfort is sort of the age that we are moving into now that Saturn has stepped into the sign of Aquarius. But the thing about Aquarius, which is interesting, is Aquarius doesn't care to fit in or politic the way that Libra does, even though they are both air signs. And with Saturn moving into Aquarius, Saturn being the planet that brings karma, destruction, as well as construction, because it's all about the infrastructure of something. So it might be destroying something or building it up. And so with Saturn moving into the sign of Aquarius, this is the breaking of chains and attachments that we have made or had to our social life, to the people in our personal life, to the world and society around us. Some of us have been very submissive to the opinions of the world and others about who we are and who we should be. And with Saturn now moving into Aquarius, we are being separated from this manufactured persona or identity or duty that we have taken on. And we are stepping out of that skin. We're stepping out of that outfit, basically. And we're doing this alone to divert from who we are or what we've been and what we've built throughout our life now. It's gonna feel just like how this astrological chart looks for this full moon. Lonely, scary, and unnecessarily uncomfortable. Now moving on to Pluto conjunct Jupiter and Saturn. Now, the moon in Libra makes us instinctively want to connect, align, associate, to deal with the distress and the uneasiness of this full moon that we may be feeling. But it's really important for us right now during this moment of separation and detachment to not necessarily try to fall back into old ways, just so that we can reestablish that comforting feeling, just so we can establish that fake sense of security and comfort. So this is a social, mental, and emotional detachment from our very own comfort zone. And Pluto conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter is that big planet that brings opportunities, right? Opportunities. He magnifies things. He's like a magnifying glass. So Jupiter is bringing us the opportunities and the possibility of dissolving the ties to anything that made us feel powerless, afraid, ashamed, or unstable, thanks to Jupiter's conjunction with the planet Pluto. Pluto rules death, transformation, and power. So this conjunction is a chance at rebalancing our own scales of power, authority, and influence. Mercury conjunct Neptune and Chiron while in the sign of Pisces. This is where things get lost in translation. Neptune is a very grainy sort of planet, almost like static on your TV, right? Where it's like you can kind of see the images behind the static, but it's really difficult to make out what's going on, right? Well, this is what's happening with our emotions. Emotions are not necessarily going to be a very reliable source for us during this full moon, and neither will our minds. And it's not to say that our emotions or our mental acuity is wrong. It's not to say either one is more right or more wrong than the other. It's just that our hearts and our minds are going to be having these separate experiences from different perspectives. So like I said, this is a bit of cognitive dissonance here, where it's like I'm kind of experiencing one reality mentally and then feeling something entirely different emotionally. So it's like, what side do I listen to, right? But first we got to move on to Sun and Chiron in the sign of Aries. So the first word that I heard with this placement was threat. And this is feeling like you're under fire, or like something can be taken away from you. For some of you, you may be feeling like you're at risk of losing something. Now, these threats are symptoms of old wounds that had been left unchecked and left supervised, basically. It's kind of like the aftershocks of an earthquake, and these ripple effects are just that. They're effects. This feeling of fear or a threat is here because this is that first step that you're taking off that ledge. This is that first time that we are taking that flight from the nest. We're leaving the nest, right? So it's kind of like that first descent from the nest, and it's like we're leaving this really comfortable, safe place. And whether it was safe or not, I've talked about this a lot, about how our comfort zones sometimes are not necessarily comfortable at all. Sometimes they're not safe at all. Sometimes they're toxic. Sometimes they're bad and they're unhealthy for us. But because we've grown so used to them, we've normalized them, it comes off as an illusion of a safe place because we're used to it, because we know what to expect. Maybe this comfort zone is stunting our growth a little bit. It's really hard to grow in the comfort zone. It's really difficult to grow in the comfort zone. It's damn near impossible. But the anxiety of this change or this next step where this newness can create those illusions. So we sort of feel this need to worry or to be a little bit anxious. But that anxiety is the same exact thing that makes you grow. It's that discomfort. It's that feeling of, I don't feel good right here, right now. Well, that is because you are in the process of growing. These are growing pains. You're in the process of becoming used to a new normal. You're in the process of creating a new normal. And this is the point in time where we're really able to sort of dictate exactly what sort of reality or environment we want to be in or be a part of. So this is a very fertile time for a lot of people, a very beneficial time as well, if you know how to work with this. It's all about working with it. We are not allowed to come to astrology and say, hey, fix our problems, without necessarily laboring and putting in that work. That is not what manifestation and the law of attraction is about. One of you guys asked one of the most amazing questions. I love answering this question. And one of you guys asked, like, is the law of attraction even real? Because it just seems like sort of like a gimmick for people to sell books and, make videos and stuff like that. And, my response was, it's very real, but it's all about reprogramming the subconscious mind, and a lot of people kind of go into it thinking, well, if I just want something, it's going to happen. No, it's the same exact thing. The law of attraction is the same exact thing you've been doing your entire life. You have manifested everything around you. Everything that is in your life right now, you have manifested it, whether you knew it or not. Take a person that says, I want to get in shape. They actually have to put some labor behind that, right? They have to actually go to the gym or get on a diet, make certain sacrifices, discipline themselves in certain areas. There's certain physical actions that they have to take to make that thing come in. So it's not as simple as waving a magic wand or, saying a few words and some invocations and some affirmations and listening to subliminals at night. That helps to reprogram the subconscious brain, because reprogramming the subconscious brain is a lot of the work. It's the subconscious mind that tells us if something is possible or not. It's the mind. The mind is the one that we really have to crack. And this full moon in Libra for me is showing, it's really revealing a lot about people's mental health and a lot about people's mental state, basically, where it's almost like a diagnostic center of, hey, this is how you're feeling. Whether or not this is your actual reality, this is how you're feeling. So this is your reality and this is the world's reality. Which one do you listen to? You don't listen to either of them, and you don't shut either of them down. You compare the two and you take data points from that and you say, okay, why am I processing this in that way? Why am I digesting this as that? Why are they digesting this as that? Why are they reading me this way? Or why am I reading them or that way? Sorry, you guys, let me turn that down. But it's like, why am I reading this way that I am? Why are they reading me the way that they are? What's going on here? This is not necessarily something that we need to take as like a negative thing or a positive thing. Neutrality. Neutrality is the most important thing in terms of enlightenment and awareness. We have to learn how to be impartial, where we take certain data points and we don't say, oh my gosh, this is a horrible thing. The emotions have got to be left out of this. That's what I love about the air signs. But especially the air signs. Air signs are cold, where they're just like, fuck emotions for a second. I need to understand mentally, logically, what's happening here. And this is exactly where we need to be right now, honestly, the state of the world. And what this is really going to help us to do is this is really going to help us to expand our perspective. What the universe is trying to do is, and so many people have taken what's happened in the world right now, obviously, as either a bad thing or a good thing, when it's supposed to be a little bit more neutral in this, where it's like, why did this happen? Well, why did this happen? So this is a new learning process that we're beginning, and depending on how we look at this learning process is really going to determine the experience that we have. It's really going to determine how much of this lesson we retain. This life is a game of your mind. So if you're telling yourself you're screwed, what do you think is going to happen? Everything listens to the mind. The body listens to the mind. The mind is the control center for our life. So whatever you tell the brain is what your reality is. Theory of relativity, look it up. It's an amazing theory, because it's just like, I mean, Einstein was looking at it in terms of speed, but I'm kind of looking at it in terms of everything, where it's like, yeah, that's your reality, but relative to what? Relative to what is actual reality, you know? And I mean, we're going really deep down the rabbit hole. This is what I do all day. Now, moving on to Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Now, Uranus in Taurus stubbornly wants to do things his own way on his own time. So this is just something that you can't rush. This is very stubborn energy as Uranus is moving through the sign of Taurus. He's going to be there for another 6 to 7 years. So you might as well kick your feet up and relax, because it's going to be a while. But, you know, this is energy that we cannot push. We can't rush. We can't force. We also cannot run from circumstances and our feelings. We can't run from the things, an environment that we might not want to deal with, or circumstances that we might not want to deal with. Maybe they're inconvenient or a bit awkward. Maybe they just don't make sense for our life. Whatever the case, we cannot escape from these circumstances, basically. So this is a very stubborn, rigid approach to, no, you're going to have to sit here, soak it all up, basically. So Uranus in Taurus is encouraging us to find effective ways of using this time and experience productively. That's what Uranus in Taurus wants us to do. That's why he's digging in his heels and he's saying, no, we're going to sit here. And, you know, besides the fact that he moves quite slow. So this is very stubborn energy when we're dealing with the sign of Taurus. And Uranus is the planet of disruption. He does what he wants to do. So when you're dealing with spontaneity and stubbornness, it's very strange kind of energy. But at the same time, like I said, Uranus is really trying to get us to focus on how to use this time productively. There's really nothing we can do to change that particular energy. So it's more so about, okay, well then how can I work with it? You know, that's the best thing that we can do when we're dealing with Uranus and Taurus energy here. Okay. And so a really good example of this would be like, instead of going outside and sitting on a rock and, you know, trying to meditate or something like the monks do it, and repeating these words that you have absolutely no relationship with, you have to find your own way to do these things. You have to find your own way to meditate. That is what Uranus inspires us to do. He inspires us to find our own way, to develop our own relationship with life and with different things. And in the sign of Taurus, this is really beautifying that. It's really enhancing this experience where it's like all the 5 senses are stimulated because of this. So instead of, like I said, doing these things that you just have no relationship with, Uranus and Taurus is saying, let's create a connection here, a good connection that you feel stimulated, you feel good, and you feel satisfied. That's what Taurus is all about. It's about pleasure, beauty, love, because it's ruled by Venus. And so, you know, meditation for you, it may look like cooking, dancing, singing, painting, laughing, drawing. It might look like something completely different to you, where people are like, that's not meditating. For you, it is. For me, it's meditating. For me, it works. That's what this is all about. You rebelliously going against the grain and going against the norm and going against the mainstream. Fuck the mainstream. Saturn in Aquarius is destroying the mainstream for the next 2 years. Okay, and so moving on to the last placement, the last astrological placement that I want to talk about is Venus in the sign of Gemini. So the reason that I'm laughing is because I don't know why, but the second that I saw Venus in the sign of Gemini, now Gemini is very talkative, inquisitive, and curious, right? But Venus in the sign of Gemini, for me, it just feels so mischievous. It feels like prankster. It feels like very youthful energy, like a trickster, sort of like Fox, and not in a bad way. It's like if the 7 of Swords had a more so like light side to it. Gemini is very youthful energy, and Gemini loves to learn. It loves to communicate. It loves to talk. This is why Gemini is represented by the twins. Not because Gemini is bipolar, like a lot of people like to generalize and say that Gemini is bipolar, but Gemini is represented by the twins because Gemini is all about communication, spreading information, spreading words, spreading messages, right? And so this is a really great time for us to dive into that data that I was talking about earlier, where we're emotionally and mentally receiving this data, but with more buoyant energy, with more neutral energy, with more so like where you separate yourself from the ego. And we are so hyper focused on relationships right now, you guys, and the people in our lives right now. I just finished up the 12 zodiac signs, the horoscopes for the month of April. Took me a while, but the interesting thing is in just about each one of those readings, there was the biggest energy of relationships, of something else coming in, of dealing with the other. And it was just like back to back to back to back, just about every single sign. There was a highlight of somebody or a particular relationship in April that was just being highlighted for some reason. And this is more than likely because we were having that full moon in the sign of Libra. And like I said, Libra deals with the other. So whether it is romantic, platonic, family, it doesn't matter. It could be your own self. It could be different versions of yourself, your shadow. This is just us dealing and confronting and observing the other. When we observe the other, we are observing a reflection of ourself. And I think it's really interesting that we're experiencing this global health crisis and this self-isolation during such a interesting time where the moon is in the sign of Libra. And like I was saying, Libra is a very collaborative sign. It wants to reach out and connect to the other. And we are in a state of self-isolation. So everything feels very unnatural. And it's so interesting to me that the moon was by itself during this time of self-isolation. It's just like everything's so in sync. Like, I don't know how people don't believe in astrology, but it's just like, if you just look at the chart, that is exactly what it looks like that many people's realities are right now, where it's just like we're isolated. We're isolated even though we might not want to be, even though we want to find this connection, even though we want to establish some sort of a real connection. And it's like we're feeling alone and isolated and quarantined. So, you may really be logging like who's called you, checked on you, who has really been there for you throughout this time. You may be very hyper aware of that. And you may be sort of logging that and saying, okay, now I see how it is. You're really looking at people's actions right now, and you're looking at how they move, and you're just sort of observing everything. And another really important thing to do as well, though, is to observe the self. That's what I was saying. Libra is about the scales. When we're dealing with the scales, it's not just one scale, it's both. It's like looking at a math problem. You don't see 1 plus 2.3, is like a bad thing. Like, no, it's just, those are just numbers. That's how you need to look at this information that you're observing about the other people in your life as well as about yourself. You just need to look at it as this is just numbers. This is just information. This is just the truth of what is going on. This is just the reality of what is happening here. So how do we see things from an unbiased standpoint? How do we take this information and detach our personal feelings from it? That the way we can just observe it for what it is? Well, this is why internal work is so extremely important, because when you know who you are, what does that mean? When you know who you are, you know what your triggers are. You know what you're attracted to. You know what you're turned off by. You know what you've been through. You know where you've come from. You know where you're trying to get to. You know all of these different things. These are the things that you know. It's very, very, very important. In order for us to know life and the people that we're dealing with, we have to know ourselves. So it's really important to be able to tell where the origin of that feeling is coming from. Really, really, really important. And that is how you're going to know if it's your intuition, if it's your higher self, if it's spirit, if it's the universe, or if it's just your ego, a bruised ego, a scared ego, your inner child that's still hurting. Okay? So, you guys, let's go on ahead and shuffle some cards. Just give me a second. Just kind of clear the energy just a little bit. Just lighting a little bit of Palo Santo. Clear the cards, clear my own inner. Oh my God, I love this stuff. The smell of it is just amazing. Let's go ahead and get a couple of tarot cards for the energy. Not just the energy for this full moon, but the energy for the week of the full moon. And let's just even do the week after. Okay. So I'll do about 6 cards. I got 3 so far. Okay. Let's see. So the very first one that we got, 10 of Cups. It's interesting because the 10 of Cups kept popping up in the zodiac and the horoscope signs yesterday as well. The 10 of Cups just keeps popping up everywhere. So the 10 of Cups is what a lot of people are really yearning for right now. Many of us have been yearning for this 10 of Cups energy. And if you don't know about the 10 of Cups, I'll put a little picture of it up here on the screen. But the 10 of Cups from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is a depiction of a family that's outside and they are celebrating the fact that they are just in each other's lives. There's so much emotional fulfillment in the 10 of Cups. And so basically there's a real serious yearning right now for this connection, to feel like our relationships make sense, for them to resonate with us. And especially because too, our relationships are very highlighted because very many of us are self-isolating or we're quarantined. So either we're alone and we're really now realizing, like, now that I'm alone and I'm forced in the house, I don't have all these distractions where I can go do this and go do that. Many of us may be realizing, like, I want a significant other in my life, or maybe I want a family, or maybe I want a better relationship with the family that I already have. Maybe I want better friends in my life. Maybe I want a better partner in my life, or maybe I just want to improve upon these relationships, or maybe I want to kind of get away from these relationships. There's a lot of focus around right now, our relationships, and how fulfilled we feel emotionally in terms of the others in our life, you know, when it comes to that dynamic. The next card that we have here, the 10 of Coins in reverse. So we have the 10 of Cups in reverse, the 10 of Cups, and then the 10 of Coins in reverse. So there's something not lining up here. That's what I'm getting from this. Like I was talking about with the astrological chart, there's a bit of cognitive dissonance or an identity crisis. Some people had a completely different life that they were living outside of the home versus inside of the home. For some of you, you were completely different in your career. You know, you were a different person in your career versus your home life. You know, and that's very many people. Very many people, it's like you wouldn't necessarily know them unless you lived with them. But the thing is here is where there's a disconnect between these two lives, the family life and then maybe the career life, or my home life and then my public life. It's not correlating like it used to before. And I think that because with this 10 of Coins in reverse, especially because this 10 of Coins in reverse, a lot of people are sort of forced to not go to work, right? For a lot of people, work was a way to get away from the home, to get away from the home life. And so now it's like we have to sort of bridge these two lives together. And it's like, do these things work for me? Does my home life work for my career life, or does my career life work for my home life? There's a disconnect here for sure. Both of these cards represent family in them. They show family in different ways. The 10 of Cups is more so emotionally fulfilled. The 10 of Pentacles is more so financially fulfilled. They're more so materially fulfilled, where it's like, and that's the interesting thing that you'll see in the 10 of Cups versus the 10 of Pentacles. I'm going to put both of those cards up here from the Rider-Waite-Smith, because you're going to see a clear distinction between them, where the 10 of Cups, they just look just happy to be in each other's lives, no matter what they have. And in the 10 of Pentacles, you see someone where it's like, they're living a damn good life, but the relationship isn't necessarily there. The connection isn't the same thing as it is in the 10 of Cups. The one thing that I'm really getting, people didn't actually know the people in their life the way that they thought they did. A lot of that's changing because of the social distancing, the self-isolation, the fact that we don't have as many distractions anymore, people are a lot more hyper aware of their relationships and those dynamics. And we're seeing now, like, I think before, very many of us were just sort of able to kind of suppress things or sweep them under the rug because we had the option to go outside and live this other life. Now that that isn't an option anymore, I think a lot of us are realizing, damn, I don't know you the way that I thought I did. Or maybe a lot of us are realizing that there's been a lot of changes with the people in our life. They've been, just like we've been going through an internal journey, so have they, whether they are aware of it or not. I think very many of us are realizing like how different we are. And it's like, I think we didn't realize before the people in our life the way that we see them now. We're seeing them a lot different, whether it's a good different or not great or not so good different. We're seeing these people in our life way differently. The next card that we have here. What is that? Nine of Swords in reverse. Yeah, okay. I don't know why, but it's like I'm hearing, I didn't know. The Nine of Swords in reverse is telling me I didn't know. Okay. What's going on here that I'm seeing is like, people have a lot more time now for their relationships. As bad as that sounds, people have more time. And so there's things that's probably coming up. There's conversations that's probably coming up. There's different traits and different little things that we're saying that we probably never saw before, or we never really noticed it before. Or if we did notice it before, it was just easy for us to ignore it if we wanted to, because we didn't have to deal with it. We could leave our house. But now it's like, that's why I'm hearing I didn't know. For instance, if there was a really big or difficult conversation that came up, it could be, wow, I didn't know this was bugging you, or I didn't know this was bugging me. Maybe you can't stand the way that they chew their food or something. It's not how they chew their food that's pissing you off. There's something deeper going on that's pissing you off, and it's probably the fact that you're spending more time with that person. And if you spending more time with that person makes you realize, like, ew, I really don't like you as much as I thought I did, there's something deeper than just the way that they chew their food there. So it's like there's things that we didn't know that's coming out. There's a lot of skeletons coming out of the closet that we weren't aware of. We were not aware of it. And that's what I'm getting with this Nine of Swords in reverse. And we're sort of handling that right now. The next card that we have here is the Pillar. So this is the Empress in reverse. So this is a matter of, I'm not attracted. Some of you, wow. The Pillar, the Empress in reverse. The Empress is the card of creation. She's the card of femininity, the divine feminine. Right? And what is the divine feminine? Feminine nature is all about creation. How does it create? By collaborating with something else, by working with something else, by producing with something else. But in order for the divine feminine to produce with something else, what does it have to do? It has to draw it in. It has to attract it to itself. That's what the Empress does. She's very abundant because she attracts in life. That's what chemistry does. You're attracted to someone. Why is that? For you to bring your lives together, or maybe for you to create more lives together. You're attracted to music. Why is that? Maybe it's to create music. You're attracted to this. Why is that? Maybe it's to create that. You know what I mean? It's all about creation. We are drawn to certain things because there is something that we can give to that thing, and that thing has something that it can give to us. So there's something here about chemistry being off. The thing that has me concerned about this is these last three cards are in reverse. The Ten of Coins, the Nine of Swords, and the Empress. They're all in reverse. So for me, it's like these realizations for some people are happening and they're not verbalizing it. They're just sort of sitting with it, like, and it's festering. And what I feel like is it's building up this resentment, or it's building up this wall. It's creating more and more distance. So it's like, even though we might be in this house stuck with each other because of this pandemic, I feel this is the most distant I've ever felt from you. This is the furthest I've ever felt from you. That's the thing here. It's really interesting to me that we're in self-isolation during this full moon in the sign of Libra, like I was talking about. This is going to give us the opportunity to see, this is what I'm seeing in the cards now. This is giving us the opportunity to see how we feel, either alone or surrounded by the people closest to us. So if you live with your partner or your family, you're going to be hyper aware of how these relationships play out in your life. Like if you still feel alone, surrounded by family, or sharing a home with your partner. Do you still feel alone? How do you feel? Is it this 10 of Cups where it's like, we're good materially wise, we're good, financially we don't have much to worry about, but is that connection there? Or maybe the connection is there, but we have resources to worry about, and that could also be playing on your relationship. That could also be playing on your dynamic, where it's like, I feel like maybe I'm doing everything on my own. I feel like my partner isn't really helping me. I feel like my partner isn't really worried. I feel like maybe I'm more worried or more concerned than my partner is. I feel like I'm taking this more seriously than my partner is. I feel like I'm being more proactive than they are. I feel like I'm doing more for this family than they are, right? So it's like a really good look as to, how do you feel? If you are living through self-isolation alone, then how does that feel? Is it awkward? Do you feel uneasy or uncomfortable? Do you feel restless? Or is this the much needed peace that you're realizing that you haven't experienced in a while? You haven't felt this peaceful in a while. What is it doing for you? What is this experience like for you? Is self-isolation pretty normal for you? Is it just kind of like another day for you? For me, self-isolation was just kind of like, okay, been doing that. Maybe you have some sort of realization here that you've needed some alone or quiet time for a while. This full moon is unveiling some buried feelings about the ones closest to us, including the self, the closest thing to you, which is the self. The next card that we have here, the 9 of Cups, you guys. Do you see that? Do you see this? For some of you in a relationship, this isn't good. Because it's like, some of you are feeling certain types of ways, but you're not verbalizing it, you're not expressing it, you're not venting it. So it's like, this 9 of Cups here, I'm going to put a picture up of the 9 of Cups. This is somebody that is very okay alone by themselves. We have the 9 of Cups, and then directly after the 9 of Cups in tarot comes what? The 10 of Cups. So this is like saying, even though I have a family, even though I'm surrounded by people, even though I'm surrounded by loved ones, am I still happy? Or can I actually be good by my damn self? Would I actually be happier by myself? Some of you guys, this question is coming up where it's like, what? I think I'd be happier without you in my life. Or I think I'd be happier with you in my life. It's a realization of, this is what I need to truly feel fulfilled and happy. There's a lot of realizations happening. You guys, the next card here. The Tower. So, like I was saying, there are some realizations happening, and a lot of people aren't being verbal about it just yet. If your relationship seems to be doing great, then I don't think you have anything to worry about. This is for the relationships where it's like you can feel something's a little bit off, but maybe y'all just aren't acknowledging that off feeling, but you can feel it. It's there. So for some of you, this is bringing a Tower moment, because it's like you're having this realization of, I'd be much better off or happier without them in my life, or I'd be much better off or happier with someone in my life. And that can still be a Tower moment, because it's like the Tower card is not necessarily about destruction and everyone's dying. It is about the breaking down of the ego, the breaking down of the way that we identify, the way that we see ourselves. So if we've been telling ourselves, I'm this forever bachelor, bachelorette, I don't need anyone, I don't need a man, I don't need a woman, I don't need a family, I don't need this and this, I don't want this and this. And now it's like during this time of self-isolation, or it could be, that combined with this full moon in Libra, where the relationships are highlighted, this Tower card could be saying, damn, I do actually want this. That is also a possibility of a Tower moment. As well as this Tower moment could be, I don't want to be with this person anymore. Or maybe I need to distance myself from my family. Or maybe these friends just aren't who I thought they were. There's a bit of an annoyance. It's like an annoyance. For some people, it's just like this, it's just, you're so annoyed, you're so triggered, and you're so uncomfortable. Like I was talking about when we were discussing the astrological chart, if you're feeling uncomfortable, triggered, alone, isolated, annoyed, frustrated, these are all really good signs, because when we're uncomfortable, that's when we put in that work. Because it's like, I can't stay like this for long. This is uncomfortable for me, right? And then underneath the deck, let's see here what we got. Conqueror of Coins, the King of Pentacles. Okay, so we're definitely establishing something. We're definitely trying to establish stability. We're trying to establish what this Ten of Cups means to us. And so, there's a lot of realizations happening about our dynamics, about how these relationships are working out in our life, about where our place is in these relationships and in these dynamics and in the world, the place it is that we have put people in our lives, where it's just like, know your damn lane, So for some, this is also coming up as boundaries. So let me go on ahead and, this one just fell out, so Ascension, but let me go on ahead and, I'm just shuffling some shamanic healing oracle cards. Okay, let me do one more because I feel like it's just, yeah. Oh, two more came out. So the cards that we got here is self-love. Exactly. There needs to be a little bit of self-love coming in here. Or maybe that's what we're learning, is how to develop that relationship with ourselves first, where that relationship is very much like the King of Pentacles, where it's sturdy, it's firm, it's solid, it's a really good foundation. The next one that we have, look at this, retreat. Many of us are already retreating, so for me, what this card is saying, that this retreat has brought up a lot of realizations. Look at this card, look at these. Inner journey. That's what we're going on. That's what's happening, is an inner journey. And then ascension. Yeah. So this inner journey is helping us to realize a lot of things. Let me see. Underneath the deck, we have slow but steady. Slow but steady wins the race. That's what the King of Pentacles is. The King of Pentacles, he does things slow. Slow but steady. And him working slowly is how he makes things so solid and so firm. That's how he builds a really good foundation, because he works slowly. He's not spontaneous. He doesn't take unnecessary risks. He makes sure that everything is working out in the way that it should be, and that everything is operating in the way that it should be, like a very well-oiled machine. But that takes time and patience. Slow and steady wins the race. This is not a race. It's a marathon. It's an inner journey that you're going on. Okay, and the card we have here, star bathing, light body, crystal grid, transmission, activation, star body. So a lot of people are just sort of connecting to who they truly are. And it's like you're connecting to your real needs, your true needs. That's what I just heard. You're connecting to your true needs, not these needs that we sort of thought were good for us. Like, where it's like, oh, I thought I needed this vacation. No, what you needed was time alone. You didn't need a trip to Costa Rica, What you needed was time alone to think, to process, So it's like, this is what our real true needs are. That was just an example. Underneath the deck, we have Messenger, serious energy, bringing harmony and balance. Exactly. Serious energy, bringing harmony and balance. That's what's trying to come in. Full moon in Libra. It's all about that equilibrium, maintaining that symmetry. Let me shuffle from this deck too, because I feel like our shadow is kind of coming up. A lot of our shadow sides are kind of just busting out right now. Hold on, you guys. I feel like there's one more. Yeah, all right. So the 3 cards that we have here, revenge. Some of you may be really thinking about something that may have happened in your past relationships, or because of, like I was saying, this energy can be seen as betrayal, but it's not betrayal. This is just like a lot of people realizing, like, now that I'm stuck in this house, or now that I'm kind of forced into this situation, they're just realizing things that they may have never realized before, or they never really cared to deal with it before because it never really mattered before. So some of you may feel betrayed, like, I didn't know that you were feeling this way. They probably didn't even know that they were feeling this way. So don't take it personally. Like I was saying, collect that data from a neutral stance. It's really difficult, you know, when we're connected, especially in our relationships. It's very easy to take this sort of energy and say, I feel betrayed by you, or I feel like I'm betraying my person or my partner or my family or my friends because I'm feeling some type of way and I don't even understand it. But you have to realize that just like you are having this realization, they're having realizations. Okay, so collect that data without attaching your ego or your identity to it or your emotions to it. When I say ego, I don't mean like pretentious. I'm sorry, you guys, my phone went off. The next card that we had, though, is Fated to Suffer. Fated to Suffer is telling me that some of you are just convinced that what's happening is not for the greater good of shit. Like, it feels there's a lot of emotions attached to what you're observing. That's what I'm getting with this Fated to Suffer. Like I said, this full moon in Libra is causing almost like an identity crisis where we don't know which reality to believe. And because of that, things feel a little bit anxious. We may feel a little bit paranoid, and we may just feel like, damn, I'm just waiting for the ball to drop. Something bad's going to happen. I know it. And it's not necessarily that. We're just in such a strange place. It's a very strange place that we're in. New energy, fresh energy. Like I was saying, think about your first day at school, first day at that new job, first date, you know, going out, meeting that person or something. It's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just so new that everyone's sort of trying to find their footing right now. So it's not that you're fated to suffer. That is the most important takeaway from this full moon, from this entire experience, is how can I see this without attaching my emotions to it? That's what's really going to save you. That's what's really going to save you from suffering. You won't be fated to suffer if you remove your emotions from it and just look at the information for what it is. Okay? And then we have fragmentation. So this is just feeling like things aren't cohesive. There's no this it's not cohesive. It's feeling like things are fractured. This is feeling like things are not cohesive. This is feeling like things are fractured. This is feeling like things don't make sense. You're trying to put pieces of the puzzle together, but all these different pieces are coming from different puzzles. And this is because things are not in alignment. Saturn moving into Aquarius. Aquarius is an air sign. When we deal with air signs, we're dealing with the other. We're dealing with perspective. Saturn is all about what? The infrastructure of something. So if something is not as structured, is not as healthy as what it looked like it was, something may have been posing as healthy, as structured, as together. But with Saturn moving through there, Saturn's going to expose that ass. Okay? Saturn's going to go, actually, no, it's not as stable as what it looks. This relationship isn't as good as what you thought it was. The situation isn't as great as what you thought it was. This isn't how you thought it was to be. So it's not that things are fragmented. It's not that you're fated to suffer. It's not that you need to seek revenge. It's just that these things weren't in alignment. They're not meant for you. This is a blessing. It's a blessing. And I know how this feels. I know how this feels. I was in a relationship for 10 years that ended, you guys, back in 2016. It fucked me all the way up. Being with somebody for over a decade and it just ends in the way that it ended. I know what that feels like when you think that your life is one way and it's not. It causes a tower moment. It causes cognitive dissonance. It causes this battle between which reality do I believe then? Because I've been living a lie this whole time and it's hurtful. You feel betrayed. You want revenge. You feel like none of this makes sense. I didn't realize how much of a blessing it was until I removed my emotions from it. When I removed my emotions from my perspective, that is when I saw the biggest benefits in this. And that is when I really started to remake myself. Kind of like just had to sew myself back together. It was like Humpty Dumpty, you know? And I had to kind of sew myself back together again. I didn't laugh for a long time. I couldn't even cry. I was so blocked. Dealt with substance abuse. I mean, that was me getting to see a really dark side of myself. And I'm so glad that I did, because I didn't know that these things existed. So it wasn't that I was fragmented. I was actually coming together. And now this is probably the best I've ever felt in my life. So whatever is happening, just know that it is a blessing. If something falls apart, it's falling apart so that the way something much better can come together. The universe never just leaves us out high to dry. High to dry? High and dry? Oh yeah. And then underneath the deck we have here, calling the storm. Exactly. Calling the storm. This is for sure, hands down, the Tower card. So this is storm. It's a storm coming in for some of us where it's just like, it's going to shake some things up. It's going to fragment some things. That's what a storm does. A storm is very aggressive, right? It brings in strong winds. It brings in rain. It brings in destruction. But it does that it has its own divine purpose as well. That storm that just blew into your life had a very divine purpose. And it's about trusting in that. And sometimes it takes time to trust in that. Sometimes that takes time. I had to realize that's not the end all be all. That's not the end of my life, you know? And I couldn't see that before. So I'm just shuffling some romance cards, you guys. 2 already came out. I just feel like there's one more, so give me a second. 2 more came out. Okay. So, you guys. It says calling in your soulmate. Your prayers, affirmations, and visualizations help bring you together. Like I was saying, some things fall apart just so they can come back together even stronger. And it might not be that person that you're meant to be with. You might be meant to be with somebody that makes way more sense for you in your life. Calling in your soulmate. There's something better coming for very many of you that you might not have had before. Look at this. True love. This is the romance of a lifetime. Do you see this? Do you guys see this? Can't make this up. Give your relationship a chance. Some of you work on your partnership. For some of you, this is all about strengthening the relationship that you're currently in. All right, I'm sorry, you guys. My camera battery died, but I think I was talking about, was it true love? I don't know. They're all pretty much the same. So we got give your relationship a chance, true love, and calling in your soulmate. Oh, it was give your relationship a chance. That's right. So with give your relationship a chance, you may definitely be reconciling. You may be getting back together with an ex, or it just might be the relationship in your life where you're just like, you know what? I'm going to work through this. We're going to figure this out. We're going to work this out, okay? And that may be exactly what needs to happen, because there is healing here. Healing can happen, you know? And then the final card that we got from the romance deck is deception. Someone is wearing a false self mask in this relationship. So like I was talking about, there's some realizations that people are coming across, and they didn't even know that they felt this way. And so I wouldn't be quick to call this betrayal. I think it's just as simple as people are trying to keep up with the life that they've built so far. And it's like, you know, maybe you entered into a relationship and it's like, maybe you didn't notice how much you guys had grown apart because there was so much other things in life going on, you know. And now that we're really shut down and we're kind of forced to deal with whatever is in our homes and is in our personal life, there's realizations that could be happening here where it's like, this just isn't for me. Something about it isn't for me, or, you know, this old way isn't for me anymore. And then underneath the deck we have, it is safe for you to love. Open your heart to give and receive the highest energy of all. Okay, so you guys, this is should we do one more? Or should I leave well enough alone? Let me just do one more from the Archangel Oracle cards, just to get a message from the Archangels, okay? Just one or two. We have peace. Archangel Chamuel, peace comes from remembering that only love is real. Only love is real. Only love. Love is the only thing that cannot be broken down. It cannot be torn down. Saturn can't fuck with it. Nothing can. Nothing real can be threatened. And then we have here teaching and learning. Archangel Zadkiel, don't know. Keep an open mind and learn new ideas, then teach these ideas to others. So teaching and learning, I think we're learning a lot about ourselves as well. Not just the people in our life, but a lot about ourselves. And then we have, look at this. Look, this is going to free, and I'm done. I'm done now. Look at this, you guys, with the scales. Divine order. Archangel Ragel, don't know. Everything is how it needs to be right now. Everything is how it needs to be right now. Look past the illusion and see underlying order. Exactly. Exactly. This is why you're having that tower moment. Like I said earlier, this tower moment is a blessing. It's a blessing. It's divine order. That's a blessing. That's why I called it a blessing, because that's exactly what it is. Sometimes things fall apart, and it's in that moment that things fall apart where we're just like, oh my God, this is horrible. It's like building a sandcastle, right? Or like a house of cards, and someone just comes along and just, you know, and you're just like, oh my God, but I spent all that time building this up. Well, it's as flimsy as a house of cards. You need something sturdier if you want something real that's going to last the tests of time. If this isolation is causing any sort of realizations, that realization was already there. It's just the fact that this isolation slowed you down, and now you're realizing it, and you're saying, okay, you've got my attention. You've got my attention. The universe slowed the entire world down and got everyone's attention. What's happening is exactly what's supposed to be happening. It may have just been a little delayed, a little past due. A lot of people were just so unaware, and not taking accountability for their own actions. We had to stop, become aware, and we had to start taking accountability for our actions. And if we don't start taking accountability for our actions, if we choose to stay blind, it's going to get way harder. Way harder. You guys know I've been talking about this for months now. The universe, not that it's turning its back on people, but it's like, if you don't want to be helped, I'm not going to force it. But right now, this is a huge focus on our mental health. There's a really big highlight on that I feel the universe wants everyone to really look at, is the state of our mental health. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for being here with me on this journey. We just hit 55,000. Literally, when I turned my camera back on, I checked my phone, and we had just hit 55,000 subscribers. That is fucking bananas to me. That is wild. It's wild. And I wish I could give each and every one of you like the biggest most, like the biggest bear hug, I definitely would. Just know that I am hugging you through Wi-Fi right now. Okay, since this is the new way that we're doing things, it's all virtual. So, and yeah, you guys know the drill. I want to take this time out to thank your guides, my guides, our higher self, amazing spirit, for these messages today. Hopefully you all come back to visit me sometime soon, but until next time, you guys stay safe, stay blessed, and keep conquering the world. Bye now.